if my colleague opposite feels that we need to ensure the protection of Canadians, he will support the passage of Bill C-9. The Conservative Party will pass C-9 today, Mr. Speaker. That is how you protect Canadians. That is how you protect communities. That is how you ensure the safety and security of Canadians.
My name's Nico Lagan, and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host, Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the liberals. We are the political orphans. That was the public safety minister blowing a gasket in debate period during the House of Commons today. Before we get started, let me give you a quick update on Bill C-9. As per the last time I checked, the motion on notice paper to speed up Bill C-9 was debated today, but wasn't voted on. But they are going late tonight because of Iran.
Yeah, you got to get
and yeah, so maybe it's been passed in the last 30 minutes. I haven't checked. I was finalizing for the show right now. But last time I checked, there was nothing. Now I'm really wondering, so I'm gonna check if the motion on notice paper was voted on today. For the people that don't know what that means, the Liberals introduced a motion last Friday to kill the debate, to kill the conversation in committee on Bill C-9, to ram it through, and the Bloc Québécois already said that they would support that motion. So it's just a matter of time. It was supposed to be, it was presented today, it was debated today, I watched some of it today, but no votes as to now. So yeah, we're too busy with Iran, it seems like, instead of voting on this.
Yeah, that's the playbook, right? Wait until you've got them distracted, and then so they don't see what you're doing over here.
That's exactly what we were talking about yesterday. If you missed that episode, I did a shorter form video. It's about 12 minutes long. And we just talked about this. The video is great, by the way. Like, I'm clapping. We did a really good job.
Yeah,
we did such a phenomenal job explaining what the motion on notice paper was. Phenomenal job explaining what was happening. Incredible. So if you want to see it, check out the video I released today, or the full video, obviously, of the live yesterday. But all to say that I'm looking right now, and it appears that it has not taken place yet. So the motion was presented on Friday. They debated it today, but it doesn't seem like it was voted on. I was expecting it to be done today. Yeah. That was the expectation, but I'm looking right now, and both Grok, Gemini, and I'm sure if I ask ChatGPT, it's going to say the same, that it has not been voted on yet. So we're still waiting on that vote, but they're going to be discussing Iran. And what's pretty funny about that is that Mark Carney is not going to be there, because I don't know if you saw that, but over the past few days, he kind of said, oh, we support the strike. We need a ceasefire. We weren't part of the strike, but maybe we should. Oh, we shouldn't do it now. He keeps on flip-flopping on the Iran situation. But he's not going to be there today to debate it, because they were having a special seance at 6:30 today. But our prime minister decided not to show up.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
I heard him complaining there the other day. He was doing a speech yesterday, the day before, and basically saying that Canada has no say. So Canada has no voice at the table, that we weren't consulted.
I wonder why.
We weren't even told. It's like, yes. This is why you might want to have a good relationship with the most powerful, richest country in the world that's directly on your southern border.
No, you don't say that. That's something he should do. Come on.
I mean, we had massively outsized influence relative to our wealth and our population on the world stage for most of the last 70 years, entirely because we were, America's little brother. And now, now just because of Trump derangement syndrome, we've basically just shit it away. It's gone.
You know, like you said yesterday, we're like the bastard red-headed stepchild. And as I said yesterday, my son is a redhead, which is pretty hilarious. Okay. Yes. That being said, I was expecting the update. I was expecting to speak about this today. This didn't happen. So the news is kind of interesting today. We have a guest at 7:30, so just so you guys know. We have a great guest at 7:30. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. It's about guns. We're going to be joined by, I'm just looking for a name. We are joined by author and owner of Caliber Publishing, Daniel Fritter, to speak about the new article he published in the Caliber magazine, where they released the cost of the new gun buyback, and we're looking at over $25,000 per gun that is registered, and over $800 million have been spent by the Liberal government already. So we're going to be speaking about that at 7:30. But until then, I find this, you know, I browse. Obviously, I'm always looking for stories, so I spend a couple hours a day, maybe more, just browsing, see what's going on in the news. And I fell on this article, on this post this morning, and I'm like, yeah, if nothing happens, if nothing big happens today, I'm talking about this. So we're talking about this. Okay, I was laughing my ass off when I saw that. I was on X and I saw a post by J. Van Bavel. No idea who that guy is. I do not follow him. He's a psychology for New York Up Psych, author of Power of Us book. Either way, he posted this. It says, just 100 users are responsible for almost 70% of online conspiracy posts from influential accounts they examined in Canada. So there's an article here about the National Observer that is just saying 100 accounts are behind the majority of conspiracy theories content in Canada.
Now, what are the conspiracy theories we're talking about?
Oh, don't you worry. Don't you worry, sir. We will be talking about this. But obviously, like at the end, these extremists create what we call the funhouse mirror effect of social media, where a small number of users create misconceptions of social norms.
Okay, meanwhile, brother, this guy is
doing exactly that.
Yeah, I bet you this guy believes women can have penises too, and men can give birth, and he thinks that's yes. Not funhouse mirror. That's not creating a misperception of reality.
No. And dating dude is not gay because he's wearing a dress. It ain't gay.
He calls himself a woman. It's not gay.
Well, what's funny is that when I saw this video, when I saw this post, I'm like, where's the list? I want to see the list. Can I see the list? Because I know I'm on it. So I want to see the list. I'm like, I want to see the list. Sorry, guys, there's no list. So first and foremost, there's no list. No, there's no list. But no list. But just to show you, this is, it was done by a foundation called Ecosystem Brief, or Media Ecosystem Observatory is the name of the foundation. Conspiracy claims and institutional distrust in Canada online ecosystem. I want to bring your attention to page 6 of 22, which is the answer to the question that you already asked, because obviously we all want to know, what are those topics that crazy conspiracy theorists like me are talking about? Well, let me tell you what they are. So page number 6. Where is it? It was, hold on, did I go too far? I thought it was page number 6. Hold on. There we go. Here we are. Yeah, page number 6. So what are the main themes and arguments associated with these conspiracy claims? Number 1, health threats. Public health threats like COVID-19 are exaggerated to expand government control. That's number 1. Number 2, gender indoctrination. Schools are indoctrinating kids with radical gender ideology.
But they are. That's exactly what they're
hold on. Exactly no, hold on. That's just number 2. There's 8 of them. You're going to laugh. Number 3, media elite collusion. Major Canadian media outlets conspire with political elites to manipulate public opinion. Number 4, election fraud.
Hold on.
No. Let's go through the list and we'll go one by one and we'll make fun of them. So number 4, election fraud. Vote counts are faked during elections in Canada. Number 5, deep state. A secretive group of elites, deep state, holds most of the real power in Canada. Number 6, digital ID. Digital IDs are used by the government to secretly control Canadian. Number 7, intentional wildfires. Wildfires in Canada are intentionally started to advance the eco agenda. And talking about the eco agenda, number 8, climate hoax. Canada fakes environmental data to expand government control over Canadians. So let's go one by one because I know you want to talk about this. Number 1, health threat. Public health threat like COVID-19 are exaggerated to expand government control. But before you go, let me ask you, or anybody that's listening to this, do you know one single person that has a head on their shoulders that have not asked questions about every single topic I mean, just mentioned?
I don't necessarily agree. Like every single one of those points you mentioned, I don't necessarily agree with the opposite. But I don't think any of them are true conspiracy theories. They're all, they're all topics that have valid questions, right? Like I don't necessarily know that I believe, I don't necessarily know that I believe that the government, the extreme conspiracy theories, like the government was behind COVID. They released it intentionally, so I don't necessarily think that's true. But it's certainly worth asking questions is, are there people in government who saw that there was a crisis here, who took that as an opportunity to pass laws and increase their power and control? I mean, that's a valid question. That's not a conspiracy theory.
The government was found to use the Emergency Act unconstitutionally, and it was deemed illegal. What's the number 1? Health threat. Public health threat are exaggerated to expand government control. That's not a conspiracy theory. You don't even need to believe that the government put it in place and they... That is right there. Number 1, I can prove to you that it happened. That's not a conspiracy theory. I mean, number 2, gender indoctrination.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's crazy. It's because that's just flat out something that's happening. That absolutely is happening. That's wild, man.
Number 3. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that he would call that like a conspiracy there. Like, it's literally what's going on. Anyone who has, is a teacher or has kids in school knows it. They may even agree with it, but they know what's going on. The paragraph is right next to it. You're going to enjoy this one. So, gender indoctrination. Schools are indoctrinating kids with radical gender ideology. Claims that schools are promoting radical gender ideology without parental consent or knowledge through curriculum like the sexual orientation and gender identity SOGI, teaching resources, drag queen story time, and transgender medical interventions for minors. True. All of it's true.
All of it. Every single one thing.
That's wild. He's saying this like he's expecting you to be like he's talking about fucking flat eartherism or something, but motherfucker, these are all just facts. Every like you see stories all the time about parents complaining that we weren't told about this, and then they'll go to the school board, and the school board won't release it. The parents will say, "What can I see the course material you're using for this?" No, we're not going to show it to you. What do you mean? What do you mean you're not going to show it to me?
So those were all 100% true. So I proved that number 1 is true, that the government did use COVID to expand their powers. Number 2, obviously, gender indoctrination, 100% true. Media elite collusion. Major Canadian media outlets conspire with political elites to manipulate public opinion. The government gives $1.6 billion of taxpayers' money every year to CBC, the biggest news outlet in Canada. Those are elites giving money to media outlets to control the narrative. That's a fact. This is a fucking fact.
Yeah, and you don't even need collusion, right? Like you don't. I don't think that the media is all emailing each other and saying how you gonna write the story. It's just like the vast majority of media are all coming from the same place. They're all coming from journalist schools where they're brainwashed with woke far left indoctrination. So they don't need to collude because they are all going to be on the same page. They're all going to push the narrative. It's crazy. So like, yeah, this is crazy.
And they don't bite the hand that feeds them.
No,
every single media outlet in Canada that's mainstream is paid by the government. They have money coming from the government. Number 4, election fraud. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, they don't, they're not stupid. They know where the money's coming from, and they're gonna keep doing whatever they have to say, saying whatever they have to say to keep the money coming.
So number 4, election fraud. Vote counts are faked during elections in Canada. Terrebonne riding right here next to my place, where 40 votes weren't counted because Election Canada, over 40, it was reported, were not counted. Why? Oh, because Election Canada made a mistake on the postal code of the pre-filled envelopes, and that got their votes rejected. A woman came forward saying, hey, the Liberal won by 1 single vote. I voted for the other guy. Why is my vote not valid? Election Canada, not my fucking problem. The Bloc Québécois had to go to the Supreme Court to get the decision reversed. What was it? Election fraud. That to me is 100% election fraud. Election Canada showed us that one vote doesn't matter. Certain votes are more equals than other. That's it, plain and simple.
And I guess you could make the argument that because the Supreme Court did overturn it, that the system works as it's supposed to, and fine. But there's no way that's a conspiracy theory. Like, those are valid questions to ask, right? Like you gotta understand, just because something you don't agree with it doesn't make it a conspiracy theory. All he's taking is pretty common, pretty mainstream right-wing ideas and labeling them conspiracy theories. Of course, the intention is to just completely undermine them, right? Make even reasonable right-wing positions sound crazy.
100,000,000,000%. Number 5, Deep State. A secretive group of elites, Deep State, hold most of the real power in Canada. You know who controls the country? Who has the most money? We have a PM right now. We have a prime minister that we know has massive amount of investment in Brookfield. Vast amount of money invested in Brookfield. And Brookfield, last time I checked, went up more than 33% since April, since he's become PM. You're telling me that we don't have a deep state where elites are controlling what happens to Canada? Like, are you serious? We have somebody that literally we could show a conspiracy. We could show that he should be investigated for his investments, yet nobody bats an eye. It's no problem. Did you see who they replaced today? Shit, I don't remember her title, but the person that's responsible, the budget officer, the person that's responsible to overview the budget, the last guy that kept on criticizing Carney's budget got canned, and they replaced him with somebody that Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney went to school with. That was done today. But no, it's not a certain amount of elites that are controlling what happens in Canada. No, that's totally normal. It's just a coincidence that they all studied at the same school. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? The budget officer, I think, is the name. I'm going to find the name. But that happened today.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, this one, same thing. Like, I think, the term deep state certainly evokes a certain, Illuminati type conspiracy theory, but just the basic principle that there's a small group of people that control most of the power in a country. I mean, that's almost certainly true in every country. That's probably, I feel like in a lot of ways, that's just how human societies seem to work, right? There's always an elite, whether it's 600 years ago and the elites were the nobility and the kings, or today and it's the billionaires and the oligarchs or whatever.
As of March 9, 2026, the Liberal government has nominated Annette Ryan, a senior official from the financial intelligence agency FinTrack, to be Canada's next parliamentary budget officer. This follows the expiration of interim parliamentary budget officer Jason Jacques 6 months term that finished on March 2nd. Just turns out that she's been nominated for a 7 years term. So 7 years, that's insane. That's literally into the next whoever's prime minister is stuck with her afterwards. But I was reading today that she studied, that she went to the same school as Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland. But that's just a coincidence, right?
Yes. Of course it is.
I'm just looking because it's a very high-end school in the US. I just need to find what the name is, but like you said, and I'm happy you're saying it, that they are making anything that you question them is a conspiracy theory. That's it. That's all. That's all they're saying up to now. We're up to 5, and if you have the audacity to question them, conspiracy theory.
Yeah, right. They're trying to delegitimize any reasonable right-wing thought position.
You know, it's not even a right-wing position. That's the worst part. It is just common critical thinking. Because go back to the first 5 up to now. Health threats. Who has not questioned what happened during COVID-19? Gender indoctrination. Are you fucking blind? 3, media elite collusion. This is proven. Our government pays a very big portion of most mainstream media out there. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's true. Election fraud. Terrebonne. Deep state. A secretive group of elite hold most of the real power in Canada. As you said, this has to be true in every single country in the world. There's always a very small amount of people that holds most of the power. Just like, look at sports. For the people that like sports, there's just a very, very small amount of professional athletes that makes millions of dollars every year. You know, there was a great example of this. I'm a fan of classical music. I listen to a lot of classical music, especially when I'm working. And there's like 7 or 8 composers that holds literally 99% of all the music out there. You are listening to like 8 composers for what, the past 1,000 years? Like seriously, nobody else outside of those 8 have composed classical music? Of course they have. There's always a very small amount of people that control the top. That's always the way it is. And to tell me that that does not exist in country powers, yeah, fuck off. Fuck off. That's 5. 6, digital ID. Digital IDs are used by the government to secretly control Canadians. Alberta announced a digital ID. Ontario announced that they're working on theirs. Quebec announced that they're working on theirs. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a fact. That is happening as we speak right now. It's a fact. Yet it's a conspiracy theory? Seriously, it's a fact. You can Google it. Most provinces right now are working on a digital ID, but hey, that's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
They're
Go ahead. Yeah, they're constantly talking about it.
They're not hiding it.
All the time. Yeah, you hear it all the time.
Intentional wildfires.
Really? I haven't even heard this one. Is this what they're saying?
Wildfires in Canada are intentionally started to advance the eco agenda.
I mean, wildfires, they catch people all the time starting wildfires. That's now.
But that's a conspiracy theory, bro. It didn't happen. That's a conspiracy theory.
Do I think that, climate scientists are out there starting fires? No, I don't think that. But again, you don't need to start your own fire. It's like we were talking about before. You don't need to start your own Iran war. You just know eventually something will happen that will take, and you just have to be ready for when it does. So they know people will start fires. And, are there people that then take those fires and use them to push a climate agenda? Of course they do. Of course they do.
You're such a conspiracy theorist. That's what that's the effect I'm having on you, bro. Sorry, you're a conspiracy theorist now. And number 8, climate hoax. Canada fakes environmental data to expand government control over Canadians. We had a few episodes with Curie. Professor Curie, one of the smartest women when it comes, she's a climatologist out of the US. She's world renowned. They just started hating her when she started questioning the result and the data that they use to push their agenda. And she's the first one to say that if you believe in the green agenda, you should push for nuclear power. That all we're seeing right now is a war on oil and gas. She has all the data to prove her point. Yet Judith Curie has been ridiculed out of her position at a very famous university in the US. Georgia Tech was the name of the university, if I remember correctly. And you're going to tell me that there's not a hoax going on right now when the debate has been shut down from the get-go? Come on, man. Like, come on, use your head. Use your head for a second.
It's not even like, it's not even that Canada is faking the data. The data doesn't come from Canada. The data comes from almost entirely from these models that they built, right? Canada uses the data from the models, and the models are tuned to whatever the people want them to. They're putting in numbers in the model to lead it to a specific direction, right? And then Canada will then use that data to push whatever they're pushing. So none of these are really conspiracy theories.
Sorry to disappoint you, man. You're a conspiracy theorist now. If you believe that those are real, sorry, Rob. You're a conspiracy theorist now. Daniel, I see you in the background. You want to give me a thumbs up if you hear us? You ready to go? Awesome. Guys, we are joined by author and owner of Caliber Publishing, Daniel Fritter, to speak about the new article Caliber magazine released on the real cost of the liberal gun grab. Daniel, welcome. Thank you for accepting my invitation, and goddamn, that is a nice mustache.
Thank you for inviting me.
How's it going?
Hey,
nice to have you.
Love the mustache.
Yeah, that's a great,
on
great
Novembers,
stuff.
I normally have one. I normally grow it like the guy in what's the name of the Gangs of New York?
Oh yeah,
the
Bill the Butcher. Bill the Butcher.
That is a great
That's
a great mustache.
This
So as I was saying
started
that
as a Movember thing, but it's remained for a lot longer. I actually shaved it off shortly before my wedding, and my wife complained that there was too much of my face.
ouch.
Yeah.
Too much of your face.
Wants to see less.
Yep.
Wants to see less of it.
That's exactly what you said. I walked in the door, and I'd actually shaved my head as well. This is like months before I actually got married, so it wasn't going to mess with the photos or anything. But I walked in, and I thought she was going to like be a bit shocked at me shaving my actual head, and she didn't even notice that. She just was like kind of blinked a couple times in that weird way that people do when they sort of don't recognize what's changed. And it took about 30 seconds, and she was just staring at me, and she's like, "You shaved off your mustache?" And I said, "Yep." And she goes, "You got to grow that back before the wedding. There's too much of your face."
The wedding's
like,
off.
Oh,
the wedding's
okay. So it's staying firmly in place. And I think my kids at this point would probably they're 2 and 5. So if they didn't see me without it, they would probably lose their minds. So
my wife was the complete opposite, because when I trimmed mine, I was actually able to curve it. She hated it, absolutely hated it. She celebrated the day that I cut that thing off. Maybe I should grow one back just to piss her off.
Yeah, go back.
Because I need reasons to piss her off, right? And before we start, see, even our commenters are like, "That's a finely cultivated
mustache."
It's my mustache twin right there. Just saying, good job. On that note, I saw last week the CCFR, I believe, posted this article that I'm going to show right now from your magazine, Caliber magazine, where it was saying that the gun ban is costing $25,000 per firearm that are registered in the gun ban registry. $25,000 per firearm, and obviously all that money is going to gun owners, right?
Oh, that would be nice. I think a lot more gun owners might be supportive of it in that case. If people were getting $250,000 checks for 5 guns, people might not be complaining quite so much.
But it turns out that as per your investigation, that out of that $25,000, only $1,800 on average goes to firearm owners per firearm that are registered, and
it's actually less. So that was in the article. That's the estimate. So that's the estimate that public safety put out before all of this started. That they were saying they were estimating that they would pay out an average of $1,800 per firearm. But as the program has been rolled out and progressed through the however many weeks it's been now, the amount of compensation they've been providing people has been declining to the point where now people are being offered $2 for rifles that cost $1,400 to $2,000.
What?
So I expect that the average is going to be, if someone were to audit it when it's complete, the average is probably significantly lower.
Wow. What was it? I saw the post you're talking about. I think it was a type, wasn't it a Type 41? It's a Chinese made.
Yeah.
Huh?
It was a Type 41. Type 81 is a Chinese, I own one, or owned one. They're a Chinese rifle based on the SKS, which is somewhat ironic given the SKS is still legal.
Huh.
Yeah, that's it. And I saw he was getting $2.
What?
Firearm in the register. It's the government. But here's where it gets very interesting, because you're talking $25,000 on average per firearm. Through your numbers, it was indicating that out of that $25,000, let's say that it's $1,800 on average. Let's take the numbers that are there because they're terrible enough already. That $23,200 over 13 times the average compensation amount, and I calculated it to be 93% of the cost of this gun buyback is going towards administrative costs.
If we ignore that the average compensation figure provided by public safety will bear out to be high, and we ignore the fact that my estimate of just shy of $800 million is honestly low, the actual number will be higher than that. And we just run with the numbers that we've got, then it's basically 23,000, and it shouldn't be overly surprising to people that it's $23,000 and change in administrative costs when you consider this program is now in its 6th year. So you have all the costs of the past 6 years of a program that has grown so vast that it is actually the largest contributor, or has been up until recently, the largest contributor of new jobs at the Ministry of Public Safety. For 2 years running,
wow,
Public Safety has hired more people to support this program than any other thing that they do. And when you consider what else has happened in Canada, I mean, they're responsible for a whole bunch of stuff that I think a lot of Canadians would like to see changing. And this is the one job. They've hired like 200 people for this, over 200 people probably. So
over $800 million have been spent over the last 6 years. Do you remember what the number was supposed to be? Like what they were capped? Because Gary, I will not say his last name, actually mentioned that there was a cap. There was a maximum amount of money that they were going to spend on this buyback. And once it was gone, it was basically gone. What was that number again? Do you remember?
There's been 2 numbers. So the first number he put out before he was caught on tape was $750 million was going to be the total compensation. And then somehow between him saying that, I believe in October of last year, and then, or in 2024, can't remember, the years blur together these days. A few months later, he came out and said that with this program now, it's 249.8 million, if I remember correctly. So it's that budget for compensation has been slashed dramatically. And I think that that is objectively interesting because it's a tacit admission the program is intended to fail, because by the government's own estimation, the amount of money available for total compensation is enough to compensate for, I believe it was 132,000 rifles in total. However, the government's estimate of the number of impacted firearms from that May 2020 ban, just one of 3 rounds of bans, was 144,000. And I will also remind people that that estimate of 144,000 was disputed heavily by the firearms industry, who assumed or went through import records. So it's a verifiable estimate of 518,000 firearms impacted. And those are only using records that were available to them. And we're talking about guns that have been imported since the 60s. So that would also be, the actual number would be higher than that. So if the government is saying, well, we know that we banned at least somewhere between 144,000 and 2 million guns, but we're only going to put enough money in the pot for 132,000, there's a disconnect there. Someone sat around a room or sat around a table in a room and decided to underfund the program. They chose to do that. It was a very conscious decision. And I think that is quite telling. I don't know what it means, but it's telling of something.
Are gun owners, are they told how much they're going to get before they get their gun, or do you have to bring your gun in and then you just get what you get?
So you log on. So this is where it gets interesting. Is it relates to another issue that I want to bring up. Is what you do is you log on to a web portal. And if you have registered firearms, so AR-15s, those will be listed in the portal, and you can basically just select which ones you want to have put forward for the compensation program. If you have any other firearms that are not registered with the government and non-restricted firearm, you can then voluntarily disclose the make and model, and then they'll provide you with the value. But you don't get the values for either of these categories until you start making the claim process. So you basically have to tell them what you own, and then they'll tell you what they'll pay for it. The second thing is that it relates to, I've seen some comments afterwards about people saying, well, like, if they get more guns, the cost per gun goes down, because it's obvious, sort of seemingly obvious math. But what people are also not noticing is that this program is designed to end the last day of the fiscal year, this fiscal year. So the budgeted numbers that I've accounted for include everything up until the end of this fiscal year. The confiscation program ends on the last day of this fiscal year, and they will not be collecting any of these firearms until after that date passes. So right now, that 32,000 firearm figure only includes the declaration process. So all of the costs associated thus far have just been for the declaration through a web portal. We haven't seen the budget for collection and destruction yet. So although they may have more guns declared, and then we may see that the number goes down in this budgetary cycle, there will have to be budget in next year's budget for the collection and destruction, which will likely drive the cost even higher.
Yeah, so that's the thing, Rob. I should have told you this. I'm a gun owner. I own firearms that are part of that gun grab. Rob is ex-military liberal, but he's not a gun owner. So we spend a lot of time on this show talking about this because I'm a gun owner.
Yeah,
this
is basically my education on it. This show,
so what's interesting is what you just said, Daniel, is that nothing physical has been done. This is all done through a web portal online. And if you look at the process that they're using, they're literally, tell us what you have and we will tell you how much we will give you. They will not they know every single firearm that they
tell them, right? Like, you can't pull it back if you don't like the price.
And that, to me, and Daniel, you're a gun owner. You've probably been a gun owner for a while. Doesn't that sound like a backdoor registry to you, what they're doing right now?
I think it is. I don't think there's any misconception that if you were to log onto that portal and say, I have an Norinco M14, if you then back out because you don't like the price, you'd be a fool not to think that at some point in your life down the road, after October 31st of this year, you don't get a knock on your door with like, hey, so that Norinco M14 you told us about, whatever happened to that? And then you have to answer for that. So it's quite it's almost extortion. I hate to throw around such pejorative words because it leads to hyperbole, and I do try and value my role as more of a reporter on this stuff than I don't consider myself an advocate. I consider the reporting to be the advocacy in and of itself. If you tell someone this program is costing $25,000 per gun, people can reach their own conclusions from that. I don't need to pile on. But it does seem a bit extortive to tell people, hey, just voluntarily tell us what you've got, and then we'll tell you what we'll pay. And if you don't like the price, we'll come and take it from you after October 31st, and we'll charge you with possession of a criminal device. So, or prohibited device. So it's very problematic. And again, I've seen a lot of comments, people saying, oh, you've fluffed up the numbers because it's an insane figure for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. But again, this number is actually low because it doesn't include the costs associated with any of the 12 partner agencies that helped stand this program up, like Justice, Privacy Commissioner, Cyber Canada, PSPC, ESDC. Like there's so many other groups that were involved in this, and we don't know those costs. We also don't know the costs of the first year of the program. The ban was launched in May of 2020. That's a month after the fiscal year starts. So it didn't have a line item in the budget for that year. So that number has never been reported. And trying to get firm figures from the RCMP specifically on this is very difficult. Their budget documents are not exactly transparent. So it's very, very difficult to wrap your head around the full number. But again, this is, if you'd ask me what I would like to see happen from this, I'd say it all just cancel it all and give the money to, mental health and addictions counselors across the country and police officers and call it even. But if that's not going to happen, I think that people should probably be doing the same thing we did at the Long Gun Registry, which is call for the Auditor General to audit this program properly. Have someone come in that is in the government that has the ability to access all of the numbers and give us a comprehensive accounting of exactly what this program has cost us thus far before we go further down the road with it. Because as we get past the March 31st deadline, things become sort of a bit more in stone where it gets much harder to pull back on these things. There will be people that will be expecting checks, for example, that if you just say, well, we're actually just going to scrap it and not send you the check. Some people will be pissed about that because some people do want the money. The economy is not doing really well. Some people undoubtedly do they're hoping for a bit of the windfall. They've been sitting on these things for 6 years now. And if they've got a few of them and it's worth $6,000, that's a month's bills for a lot of people, right? So that they can't really start doing that. And once we get into the October area where it's you're facing criminal charges, it gets much more difficult to gain. So I don't know what sort of expediency the Auditor General might be able to move on this, but I think Canadians are deserved an answer because it's very clear that this is very murky. And that this article has gotten so much traction, I think, is testament to the fact that it shouldn't. I'll be blunt. This article shouldn't have gotten this kind of traction because this has been going on for 6 years now. We've had 6 years for, I don't know, any other journalist who actually covers stuff like this and goes to Ottawa and sits in the budget lockup room and whatnot to have noticed these numbers and reported on them. But they haven't had the opportunity because these numbers are buried in like 6 different documents that come out 4 times a year. So I think it's rough, but I would like to see a full accounting of what's gone into this.
You're bringing up, and the reason I wanted to talk to you about this is because I've noticed through the conversation, as I explained, that I'm a gun owner. I'm fully aware of everything that's happening ever since it started happening. And Rob is not somebody that was aware of this. So we spent a lot of this show having some of the biggest gun experts in Canada talk about what's going on behind the scene. And when I saw that article, it kind of confirmed one of the conversations that Rob and I are having all the time. You can be on my side, more the conspiracy theory side, that they're disarming us. They're doing this at the same time as they're trying to pass censorship bills and surveillance bills like the C2, the C8, the C9, C12, C16, C63. Or you can just go down the education path and say, hey, does that make sense to you as a non-gun owner that our government is spending $25,000 per firearm when 93% of that cost is administrative? This is not even going to firearm owners. Even if you believe that we shouldn't have firearms, does that make sense to you? And that is the one point that Rob and I can agree on, is that money is not well managed. It is spent on things that shouldn't matter. We are not the people responsible for gun crimes. 95% of gun crimes in Canada come from illegal guns, and 90% of those come from the US. They don't even come from here. Gun owners in Canada are the safest people you'll ever meet. Our names are ran into 2 different federal databases every single day to make sure that we did not commit a crime that would cause the RCMP to knock at our door and take our guns away. This is how safe we are as Canadians. But trying to explain that to a liberal to say, hey, we need guns because we have the right to, doesn't sit very well. And I'm sure you're aware of this, Daniel, right? But have you seen a switch in people's mentality after this article where they're just looking at the sheer numbers and they're like, what the fuck are you saying? 25 grand per gun?
I hope so.
Or even
I have
the total
I've
number,
noticed,
which is what, 900 million?
800,
yeah,
over 800.
yeah, they're about just. I think yeah, it's right around 800 million right now. But again, it's probably over $1 billion once you account for all those unknowns that I referenced. Department of Justice lawyers don't work cheap, and there's a lot of them that worked on this. So I think I've seen I've been in gun politics for probably up nearly 20 years now. I've been running Caliber for 14, and watching the tide shift around gun politics has been fascinating, because going back to the early days of Harper, guns were not an issue, for example, that even the conservatives wanted to discuss, and neither did the liberals. Because you remember in 2015, we had just gotten rid of the long gun registry, which was considered a multi-million-dollar boondoggle. You had Justin Trudeau saying, we will absolutely never do that again. In fact, I think that the playing of politics around gun policy in this country is repugnant, and you should vote for me to not do that, which is ironic because here we are now. But things have shifted so dramatically, where he started out in 2012 saying things like that, and the conservatives were saying, don't even bring up guns in the election because we don't want to talk about it. It's not going to be good for us. Just let us kind of quietly win the election, and if we win, we'll do stuff for you. That was sort of the attitude in 2015. Now we have Pierre Poilievre doing massive speaking tours at gun clubs across the country. So things have shifted really dramatically into a world in which I think you're seeing a lot of that anti-gun groundswell of support fade away. And I thought this was fascinating. Since this is a politics podcast, I can get into this a little bit. I did an analysis of Aaron O'Toole's election or near election, and the results in polling data when he came out and said that he would support the long gun ban, that he wouldn't legalize the AR-15. You saw no increase in vote intent for the Liberals. It did nothing for them whatsoever. That Aaron O'Toole was being hammered on guns, and it became a hot button issue, and Trudeau was talking about how great gun bans were and stuff like that. It did diminish Aaron O'Toole's vote intent slightly. So gun politics at this point are being used by the Liberals to slightly reduce support for the Conservatives. It does not benefit them anymore. It used to, and I think what we're going to see in the future is that window shifts even further to the point where it does start to benefit the Conservatives when they support it, and it can hurt the Liberals in the other way, because we're seeing the same sort of egregious excessive spending that existed in 2010, 2009 around the long gun registry, where taxpayers were going, this is a ridiculous that, everyone likes to hear things that they like that reinforce their beliefs. Like if you don't like guns, you love hearing Trudeau say, there's no place on the street for these guns, so we're going to take them. You love that. And it's not my job to convince people that believe that otherwise. My job is to simply report on the things that are happening and try and apply the most pragmatic lens to things when I can. But if you love that stuff, eventually, the chickens come home to roost and you have to see the bill for it. And that's where things start to change. And when people look at the experiences in Australia, specifically as a successful gun ban, it was done extremely efficiently. That's what people also ignore. They collected a metric ton of guns for like $1 billion, which sounds like a lot of money. But when you consider the amount of guns they collected, it was done very expediently and very efficiently. So there wasn't a lot of room for criticizing both the timeline nor the cost. That's not been Canada's experience on basically anything. We do things slow and expensive in this country. And since 2020, I've been saying that the problem with this is that it's going to be slow and it's going to be expensive, and it's served out to be exactly that. And I think from what I've heard from even media people, you see more articles about this, even from the CBC being critical of this stuff, which you wouldn't have seen 4 years ago. So I think attitudes are changing, and I think deservedly so, because there is a point where, like I said, from a pragmatic perspective, when people start to say, okay, I'm paying like when they get their tax bill at the end in April there, they go, okay, this is how much I paid the federal government in taxes. And they go like, okay, so that bought one gun. It's not only the overall cost, but like we're kind of at a tipping point, I think, in other headlines, because the thing that hasn't been brought up is compliance, because we're paying a huge sum of money for this. So you would expect there to be a reasonable amount of compliance. Realistically, having worked in the industry this far, I'd say that the 518,000 gun figure is low. The 2 million might be slightly high, but I would not be surprised if it's pretty on the money. But if you say it's 2 million guns, we've had a compliance rate so far of 1.6%. To put that again in perspective, the long gun registry cost $2 billion, was considered a dismal failure because it got 50% compliance. This has cost $1 billion after 6 years and has 1.6% compliance. So if you look at it by any kind of performance metrics, like if you're put on your, management hat and you just look at it and say it's time for your quarterly performance review, this is not a good, you've cost half as much as the long gun registry in a third of the time, and you have 1.6% compliance instead of 50. So in terms of, is this a failure on the scale of long gun registry? No, it's not. It is catastrophically worse when these numbers start to get publicized. And I don't know how they can avoid them, because the closer we get to the deadlines, when March 31st rolls around and the declaration period ends, they're going to have to produce a number. The number is not going to be impressive. Like, there's no world in which we go from 32,000 this week to 300,000. It's not going to happen. And even if it's 50,000, even if it's 60,000 guns in a country of 40 million at a cost of $1 billion, there's no world in which that isn't considered a catastrophic failure of public policy meeting spending. So it's just going to keep snowballing. And I think that as it keeps snowballing, more opinions are going to change, and more people are going to start going, this doesn't make sense. And I think the risk to the Liberal Party and the left on this, Liberal Party more so, since the NDP leadership is kind of supporting getting rid of this now, the risk to the Liberals is I don't think they realize this. I don't think they realize that as it snowballs, their problem is going to become that this is going to be an albatross around their neck, and they're going to be facing a more educated electoral voter that understands this now and starts to go, okay, well, you know, from this whole ban thing, I now know that legal gun owners don't contribute to gun crime, and that pursuing them costs a lot of money. And what we really need to be investing in is community supports, law enforcement, mental health and addiction counseling, like all those other things that are better counters to crime than this. And if they keep beating this anti-gun drum, it's just going to start hurting them, I think, in the long run. By the same token, I don't think the Conservatives have a great grasp of where the public sentiment is at with this stuff, because I think both parties have effectively been not talking to gun owners. They've been talking at gun owners instead of to them for so long, they don't understand where anyone stands on this.
The Conservatives have taken advantage of gun owners expecting their votes. Like, to me, I don't know if you ever listened to me. I'm not a fan of Pierre Poilievre. I do not condone the Conservative for being the light liberals that they are. I'm closer to what a Republican would be. I spent a lot of my time in the U.S. And to me, the gun owners are to the Conservative Party what the black vote is to the Democrats in the U.S. They expected to just show up because that's the only option that they have. But one of the things I wanted to bring up to you, because I spent a good amount of the weekend going through all the police services, the municipalities, the police associations, the provinces that are opposing the gun ban, that are saying that they will not enforce it. And I'm a coder. Like, I went to college and I learned how to code. So I coded a tracker because, you know, it's always good to speak about the good news too. And that's another thing. I'm wondering what your opinion is, but I built what you're seeing on here right now. There are more than 35 police services, 35 municipalities, 7 police associations, and 8 provinces that said no to endorsing the gun ban. And that's just what I could find right now with actual sources. So everything that's on there is sourced. But if you look at something like this, because this did not happen during the last gun registry, the long gun registry, the police over Canada did not say we're not going to be participating in this. So as you're looking at something like this, where you have numbers all over the place, 8 out of the 10 biggest provinces in Canada are saying that they will not endorse it, does that give you hope that the gun ban is just going to be scrapped altogether? Because I was surprised. When I started, I was pretty irritated. I spent a good 10-20 hours. I compiled all the data. I'm like, oh, damn. That actually is very encouraging to me to see a tracker like this, and all the red, basically, we're not enforcing it, so you can go screw yourself, federal government. We don't have the money. So is that surprising to you, or is that hopeful? Does that bring you hope?
It shocked me. It absolutely shocked me. And I mean, like, I can say you can update your map a little bit, because none of it's also said they won't do it in BC. They very quietly said that they will not be, police in BC are not obligated to participate in the ban. The BC Association of Chiefs of Police has said the same thing. So they kind of took their cue from the BC ACP, and then the BC government said, well, you know, we don't need to enforce this. So it's not as staunch an opposition as Alberta or Saskatchewan that did so legislatively, or even Ontario that said that we wouldn't do it. They just quietly kind of said, if police don't want to do it, we're not going to make them, which is shocking for BC. I mean, we're the most left province in the entire country. So at this point, it's literally just Quebec. Quebec is the only province that actually, that you can say, because regardless if we say
Quebec.
opposition or not, the only province that supports this is Quebec, which is ironic because Quebec doesn't have the RCMP. And every other police force, the BC Association of Chiefs of Police, has come out against it. And the RCMP chief guys are the ones still kind of running the show at this. But they're the one province that doesn't have them is Quebec. And it's somewhat changed. But back to the main point, yes, it absolutely shocked me.
But before you continue, let me tell you that I'm in Quebec. I'm in Montreal right now. We have an election this year in 2026. The people that are leaving are not going to get reelected. The leader left the party. But the people that are leading are a separatist movement that are pro-gun. So chances are by the end of the year, even Quebec is going to say, you can go screw yourself. We want to separate and we're keeping our guns. So basically, there could be zero provinces in Canada that wants to enforce it.
And I mean, so two things. One, I noticed Quebec said that they wouldn't provide their provincial registry data to the program, which was kind of like in and of itself surprising and a bit of a like, whoa, like that must have been a shocker when the public safety minister of Canada got the news. But in terms of the overall pushback, I am shocked because, again, going back to my history, when the long gun registry was, it was the inverse of what we're seeing now. Almost, it was so disliked that even Jack Layton said, when we finally were having a vote on it, said, you know what, like, I don't know, yes or no. I'm just going to let my MPs vote their conscience. So it was so disliked by the people in the House of Commons that no one really wanted to wear it. And Trudeau, you know, when he came in, he wanted to just say, adios, I don't want anything to do with this. It's a disgusting thing. It's a terrible, like, we're just backing away. So it was really hated by politicians. But at the time, you still had the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police saying, no, it's a really good tool for law enforcement. And I sat through so much testimony during the bills to get rid of the long gun registry, because there were two, watching police force after police force after police force do the dog and pony show, where the Liberal Party would say, they'd ask questions and the police would, no, it's a really useful tool. We totally love it. It definitely didn't contribute to the Mayerthorpe incident whatsoever. It's really great, you know, all that kind of thing. Now we're seeing, and that's the background that I know, is that police are averse to political comments in 99.9% of the cases. They just don't want to wade into it. It's not their job. They'll tell you that till kingdom come. So to see police take not a political position that is not supportive of the federal government's policy, and a policy that, let's not forget, granted the ability for police forces to be given a buttload of money to enact this. Because if, you know, I've also reading comments and see people go, well, the police forces are just saying no, or the provinces are just saying no because they don't have the money for it. That's not true. The federal government said, if you want to do this and you participate, we will pay the bills. We will send you the money. They've done so in various provinces in the past. They're doing so in Quebec. And if you listen to the comment where the Quebec government said that they would be participating, the minister basically said, we took their money, so we have to participate, but we're not going to give them the registry data. So you kind of go like, well, so you're doing the bare minimum that is required. You're saying you're going to participate, but we're not going to provide them with any of the tools that would help enable that participation. But we did take their money, so we're kind of obligated to at least do lip service, is what it came across like. But the money was there. So it's provinces and police forces literally turned their back on blank checks, saying, no, we don't want to do this. And I think it's because, you know, on a technical level, you can hand someone $1 bajillion. It's not going to create a police officer overnight. It takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to train people to do that. So there's a very technical problem there in terms of getting boots on the ground. But it shocks me. Like, I don't even think we saw this level of widespread, politically charged, like provincial provinces, police forces saying no to COVID restrictions. And that is like the single biggest input with a huge amount of pushback that I saw. And you still didn't see, you know, whole provinces saying like, no, we're just not doing this. Like this distancing thing. The idea of wearing a mask when you sit down to eat your food, or getting up, putting it on when you go to the washroom, then taking it off when you sit at your restaurant table is stupid. We're not doing that. No province said that. And yet we have whole provinces wholesale saying, we're going to pass legislation making this policy impossible to this. Like, it blows my mind. I don't think, I honestly don't, I'm 40, so I can't say for certain, but I don't think there's ever been a historical precedent for what we've seen in terms of the actual stated policy pushback from provinces, municipalities, and police forces on this. I've never seen it in my life. Like, the police have all, especially the CACP, has always just said, whatever the government says is the law. We're here to support the law. That's our job. to read that statement from them and to read the statements from like other police forces that have been a bit more direct, has shocked me. The content of some of those statements, like none of it was very clear. They've had a couple statements where they've said they're not going to do it. And the second one was a bit shocking because they were asked a couple weeks later about, have you changed your mind? And the minister basically said, no, because there's no plan. The federal government isn't telling us how we're supposed to do this, what they want us to do. Like there's no operational plan for us. And that's the same thing that the BC Association of Chiefs of Police said. There's no operational plan. Numerous police forces said we're not being given any kind of operational directives of, if we were to participate in the ASFCP, what does that look like? What do we do? Like, do they, like on a technical level, like do they come into the department with a gun? Because we don't want that. Like no police officer wants to have someone walk into the headquarters with a gun, be like, hey, I'm just here to submit this thing, because they don't like people coming through the doors with guns that aren't them for obvious reasons. Yeah. Do we go to their door? Because like, for most police forces in Canada, if they're attending a warrant and the house is known to have firearms, that's a high risk warrant. It requires like 2 weeks of planning with an ERT team, because you can't just like be like, hey, knock, knock, knock. Like Mayor Thorpe was a thing. It did happen. It informed future police policies and how they do things. They're not just going to go and politely knock on your door and be like, hey, so we're here to collect the gun that you wanted for confiscation. That is like imagine you're the police officer who gets that call. Like, hey, Bob, go knock on this address. He's got like 7 guns he wants to give up. No thanks. Like, you're talking about people who put their hands on the taillights of cars to leave fingerprints in case something happens to them. Like, these are not people who are unaware of the risk of their jobs. They are not going to go and confront armed people under any circumstances that are not very, very strongly defined. I mean, the government wanted at one point there to be drop-off locations where they'd have a big parking lot, like a stadium, and the police would be there. This is obviously informed by U.S. buybacks because that's how they operate, but U.S. cops are a bit different, and their whole system is because they have the Second Amendment. They wanted to have like drop-off locations where you drive to BC Place Stadium, and there'd be a bunch of gun owners in a big line with their cars waiting to hand in their guns. There wouldn't be a check waiting for them because the check would come in the mail later. Can you imagine like being the police officers who just stand there? Like, never mind the fact that they could be doing something useful. But I mean, okay, here's a line of 80 people that are kind of disgruntled with guns. Oh, that's great. This is a wonderful situation to find yourself in on a Thursday afternoon. Like, so they've got no plan. And I think it's simply, honestly, the whole thing shocks me. I'm shocked at how much the spending has gotten out of control. I'm shocked at the amount of provinces pushing back. I am shocked that there's no plan, like after all of this and all the expense and, $23,000 in administrative costs, that no one figured out what the police are supposed to do it. Like it's on it. You kind of want to, that's why I want the Auditor General to get involved, because I kind of want someone to step up and go, like the Office Space line, what would you say you do here? Is sort of what we need. Like,
what would you say?
What have you been doing with the last 6 years of our time and money? It's cratered the industry. Tons of businesses have closed, like gone bankrupt. People have lost their jobs. Entire sporting leagues have shut down. It's been a massive interruption for millions of people. And then to find out that now that the rubber is meeting the road and there's nothing behind it is shocking. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, some of me at least wanted there to be some sort of effort on the government's part to be like, okay, we're going to totally screw with you and all of your friends and your livelihood. And, but then at the end of it, it's just kind of like, oh, so we made a memo and a list and you can't take these to the range or you might go to jail, but we also don't know what to do with them. And by the way, we're going to collect 1.6% of them at a cost of, $1 billion. It's kind of like, wow. Great job, guys. I'll put my mask on when I get up from the table. Thanks.
Yeah.
And the funny part is that those police officers are often, every time I go to the range, I meet police officers that are there with ARs. They always have cool guns too. How many people? And that's throughout the country. I've been to all over the place.
Well, they have those to kill the most amount of people in the least amount of time. Little known fact. That's why police officers carry AR-15s. Mass murder. That's their intent.
And as you said, it's interesting because they own a lot of guns, and who wants to serve those warrants when you don't know who's behind that door? You have no idea, because a lot of us are trained. A lot of us are better trained than police officers. Sorry, but the average police officer does not need to shoot their guns. They don't know how to fight. They don't know how to defend themselves. I come from a 20-year background of martial arts, and I worked as a bouncer for shits and giggles on Fridays and Saturdays. And I've seen police officers get in fights, and it is bad. It is bad. The average police officer does not know, could not handle me. So imagine if there's a bunch of us armed waiting in our houses. Yeah, no. Well, I don't know police officers that want to serve that. But it has to. They have to consider it, as you said. But as you said, they will consider it. You don't know who's behind that door, but you know they have guns, and you know they have ammunition. That you know for a fact. Right there, they're nope. Sorry,
there's
not
no.
Interested.
It's a classic. To use the nerd reference, Kobayashi Maru no win situation of
Star Trek The Office reference and a Star Trek reference in the same episode when we're talking about guns. I salute you, sir. Good job.
Let's say their plan was, the police are going to come to your door and they're going to collect them from you personally at your place of residence because that's what they determine to be safest. Great. And then they tell you, what we'd like you to do is put it in a box. And some guy comes to the door with an AR-15 in his hand instead. And he's got a mag in it because he wants to give the mag back too, right? Because why would you have a mag and not the gun? So he goes, trust me, I have been in a gun store where a guy came in and tried to sell a belt-fed MG42 to the gun shop because he's had it since World War II. He didn't know it was illegal. He just put it in a rug, rolled it up, took it into the gun shop, unrolled the rug, said, I'd like to sell this to you guys. I'm getting old. I don't use it anymore. And they were like, what were you using it for? And he was like, Normandy. And then a little bit when I came back for fun. And I've just had it ever since. So there's lots of people. I've seen people come into gun shops with a handgun in a plastic bag because she was an old lady and her husband passed away. And she was like, well, I had the bag and I didn't think it fitted my purse. So there's a ton of my own mother-in-law took her dad's guns from his basement to her house. And I got there and I was like, where'd these come from? She's not licensed. And she's like, well, I just got them out of the basement and brought them over. I was like, that's a lot of crimes you just broke. She's like, well, it shouldn't be. They're just my grandpa's old guns. I was okay, we won't get into that, but I'll take those for now and we're good. People do these things all the time. And this is what, at some level, I'm sure the policy people are aware of. What happens when some guy comes to the door with seemingly a loaded AR-15 in his hands? He opens the door with the intent to sell it to the cops. The cops see a guy with an AR-15 with a mag in it. What do? Well, first reaction, pull your gun. The guy goes, well, it's just, he moves suddenly. Now he's ventilated and he's dead on the floor. Okay, so now they're going to get sued into the dirt because the guy declared the gun through the portal. He intended to do it. It's very like, there's, like I said, no-win situation. What is anyone supposed to do with this? Because in some cases, police are perhaps serving a warrant on a rural property where there's no chance of backup, just like Mayerthorpe. Or potentially, I have a buddy who's a police officer in a small town, and he's brought up the issue that, if you're in a small town, because there's lots of small towns like this in Canada, where there's only a few hundred people, and there's maybe 2 cops, maybe there's 2,000 people and 2 police officers. Everyone knows each other. And your ability to enforce the law is kind of reliant upon your ability to be known as a square dealing individual. That if some guy gets drunk and they get in kind of a mutually agreed upon fight, okay, so be it, right? That you're not going to send anyone to charge. You may put them both in jail cells for the night, let them sleep it off, but no one's getting an assault charge. It was just what it was. If those people now have to go door to door and collect people's guns, they're very quickly going to get a lot of ill will towards them in the community. And that's going to really impact their ability to enforce the law in actual ways, where if someone gets raped or assaulted or beaten up or something like that, how are they supposed to get witnesses to come forward and provide additional information and such? They won't, because they'll be known as that guy who just, took my dad's guns away. I'm not going to tell them what I saw. So it's hugely fraught with a lot of issues that a lot of people don't think about beyond simply the risk to police officers. There's a risk to gun owners. There's a risk to communities to have that sort of thing happen. So I'm skeptical if anything's going to happen. I kind of have a bit of a guess as to what might happen after this, based on those comments that I made about this whole thing seemingly being designed to fail. That I kind of think they'll watch the confiscation program wrap up. The people that put in claims might actually get paid, but they'll then say that based on the results of this, the program has obviously not been accepted by gun owners. We need to go back to the drawing board. And then sometime before the next election, they'll roll out some new legislation that looks to modernize the Firearms Act, with big air quotes around that, because they've been promising to do that since March of 2024. They'll try and modernize the Firearms Act by amending it such that the owners of these firearms will be grandfathered into continued possession. That the definition of a prohibited firearm will be expanded to include all centerfire semi-automatic rifles that take detachable magazines. Now, some people might hear that and go like, hey, that's great, grandfathering. There's only one kind of grandfathered firearm you can actually shoot, and that is short-barreled handguns. There are people that have grandfathered possession of machine guns, AKs that are semi-automatic AKs, and tons of other stuff that just sits in a safe because you're not allowed to buy it, you're not allowed to sell it, you're not allowed to shoot it. It just sits there forever. So the grandfathering will prevent you from being charged for owning it. It doesn't mean you'll get to go and use it. Best case scenario, I think, in a grandfathering situation would be you'll be allowed to shoot it at a range. So everything that is prohibited now will be kind of treated like an AR-15 was. And maybe you'll get to buy or sell amongst the own population that owns them. I don't know how likely that is. And it would probably be accompanied by Mr. Ananda Sangari's resignation as the Minister of Public Safety. And I suspect all of this would happen with the new Minister of Public Safety, who would probably be Natalie Provost. So she will be the one spearheading potentially this new legislation. And I say this because this is, like I said, what they've been promising since March of 2024. If you read Rachel Bendayan's comments of March of 2024, when they banned the M1 carbine rifles, they promised to modernize the Firearms Act after getting feedback from gun owners and gun rights groups and gun control advocates and the MCC and all that sort of thing. And we've seen tons of groups asking for grandfathering. We've seen lots of talk about, modernizing it. They've referenced it numerous times. So I think I think that's what they might be doing. And I think that by setting up this program to fail, it gives them a catalyst by which to sort of excuse that legislation going through. Now, will they intend to do it before the election? I don't know. I suspect that they would probably put it out there and then hope for, they would probably just go for an election before it passes. Then they would use that as a bit of a cudgel, like I said, to try and erode the conservative vote again.
And Natalie Provost, that's the woman that got shot during the Polytechnic massacre, I guess we can call it. And she is a member of the Liberal Party. Like, she is the gun control advocate in Canada. Wow, that actually makes sense. That actually makes sense that they would make her that person. She'd be the perfect person to push that type of legislation through.
It also explains why they didn't fire Gary and Ananda Sangari after that recording. Because in pretty much any circumstance, you get caught calling a program just a thing to get votes in Quebec, and it's going to fail, and you'll pay for this guy's bail if he gets arrested. But don't worry, he's never going to get arrested because it's not going to be enforced. And you're the minister of that law. You would normally get, I don't know if I can swear, but you get S-canned real quick on that one. But they didn't. So I think it's probably because they had no intention of letting him run the course. And of course, if they make it legislation where they can, because one of the other issues is that if this goes through, they lose the ability to really make the gun issue a political one, because they will abandon everything that is controversial. Everything is left is pretty much kind of untouchable, barring the SKS, which they don't want to touch because Indigenous hunters. Whereas if they go back to a reform, they say we're gonna open up the Firearms Act. It allows them to go back to another election and say, vote for us or all these guns are going to be legal again. And that's what I think they'll want to do. And of course, once you table legislation, you also get to control the timeline if you're the government. So they can table legislation saying, yeah, we're going to make the definition of prohibited, they'll trot Gary out, they'll bring Natalie in, and she'll say, well, in response to the concerns we've heard from gun owners, we're going to scrap the confiscation program. And instead, we're going to amend the Firearms Act to allow people that own these guns to continue to own them, to satisfy their requirements, but to satisfy the requirements of Canadians that don't want to see these things on the street. They're going to be strictly controlled or whatever else. And we're going to expand the definition of prohibited firearm so that we don't have to do this piecemeal ban by name process. And we'll simply say, they're all banned based on definition. And I think then they control the timeline, so they can simply say, well, they can make a big deal about it. They also get access to the public purse to do studies and whatnot, which is a bit cheeky, because if they put forward the bill, they then get access to millions of dollars in public polling and studies, where they can study exactly how people respond to various things that they can then campaign on. So they can get it all the way to third reading, and then they can go, well, we'll drop the election writ, and we'll use all of that information that we gained while we were shopping this around as legislation during the election writ to try and beat the Conservatives again. So I expect that's why I don't think they'll try and actually pass it, because I think in the current minority situation, that would be difficult for them to do. But for a pre-election campaign strategy, it's a great possibility for them. It's what I would do. If I was the Liberal Party, that's exactly what I would do. It gives you a completely asymmetric ability to control that electoral map.
Hopefully you're not right, or you're right. I'm not sure which worse. I'm not sure I don't think it's going to pass. I think they're going to have to scrap it. I totally agree with you on that one. It's just too bad to fail. It was going to fail from the get-go, and gun owners are saying, screw you, it's not happening. 1.6% response is a massive indicator that we're not interested whatsoever. So to me, that's a no-brainer. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do afterwards, but we're way over time. We're like 20 minutes over. I want to thank you, Daniel, for coming on the show. I want to thank you for giving us your time. My co-host's laptop froze, it seems like, so he's kicked himself out, or he just logged out. But I want to thank you. I don't know if there's something you want to say in ending about the article, about what you guys are doing, but I'll give you some time if you want. Just plug yourself in there.
Well, I mean, the article was the continuation of a long series that I've been doing on the costs, because I've been focusing heavily on that. I have the general belief that governments, all their power flows from the public purse. Without our dollars, they can't make laws, they can't enforce laws, they can't get jails to put us in, they can't get judges to convict us. So it all stems from what they do with our money. And if there's something that I can leave the viewers with, it's that sense of pay attention to what your money is being spent on, because they can really contort people with their ability to propagandize or put out communications materials that are slightly misleading, or things that have been heavily influenced by an amount of polling data that would astound you, so that they can really understand what you want to hear, and they can put those words exactly in front of you that can mislead you. They might say that they're going to give you the best thing ever, but it might not work out that way. But if you start to focus on the numbers, they can't really lie about that stuff. So pay attention to what your money is being spent on. That'll give you a much better indication of what the government's intending to do. And I think with that knowledge, you'll be much better informed to cast a well-informed ballot in the next election. Otherwise, if you want to keep abreast of things gun-related with that sort of content, head over to calibermag.ca. We're also on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all those other places. I'm going to be doing a lot more video uploads this year. I've been a bit, I'll just say lazy on that front for the past couple of years. So I'll be correcting that for 2026. So looking forward to that. So head on over there if you want that stuff. And if you want to support the actual coverage, the best way to do that is just by buying a subscription to the magazine. We do 6 issues per year. The first one's already come out. I have one around here. There we go. Good old SKS on the cover, because everyone likes those.
Nice.
So that was Winter Brutality here in Kelowna. So yeah, if you like that stuff, then grab a subscription to the magazine. That's much appreciated. That's what keeps the lights on and us covering all this stuff. So, and I appreciate being invited on the show. I've watched a few of them and whatnot, and I was wondering what it's got to take to get on. So I'm glad to finally make it on.
Well, thank you for taking the invitation. It's a matter of asking. Like, I have multiple people just reach out now because of the range, the audience that we're getting on that gun.
I never want to overstep. I just wait and sort of, when the time is right, I'll get the invitation. I put it in.
I'll tell you,
the Almighty's hands and see what happens.
I'll tell you right now, if there's something that you need to plug, there's something going on that you're talking about that you need more exposure, let me know. Hit me up. Just let me know. We'll have you back on. We have a bunch of people that always show up on the show that I call when something's going on. I have experts in old fields. So if there's something that you're talking about that you need exposure, let me know. We'll have you back on. That's the way the show works. We like to have friends of the show. So
sweet. Well, I'm happy to be one.
Absolutely. Thank you again for doing this, and we'll do it again.
Sounds good.
Enjoy your night.
You too.
Bye. So, guys, on that note, hopefully you enjoyed the show. As you saw, Rob crashed out. He's gone. It is what it is. He's a liberal. He tends to leave whenever he wants. So that's how it works. Hopefully you guys enjoyed Daniel from Caliber Magazine. I absolutely enjoyed this conversation. Very knowledgeable guy. So if you guys enjoyed it, make sure to like, make sure to comment. We want to hear from you. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to this show. You've never seen us before. Make sure to subscribe. Join us on the YouTube channel so that we can see your comments. You can come to @real Nico Lagan, or you can come to the Political Orphans on YouTube. I do need to mention our sponsor of the day, that is Miss Kleos Pet Treats, 100% natural, healthy dog treats made right here in Canada. Not only are they handmade, but all the meat comes from local farm in Manitoba. She does it all herself. My dog absolutely loves it. And of course, we do have a discount code, Political Orphans. So go to CleoCookiesandTreats.ca and get 20% off your entire purchase. Just look in the description below. You'll see the link to the website. You'll see the coupon there for getting 20% off your entire purchase. On that note, we are done for the day. We're way over time. But before I let you go, I just want to mention who we have on the show tomorrow, because it's going to be a special one. I'm really, really looking forward to this. And I want to thank our follower, one of our original orphans, Prairie, for recommending this person. So first, at 7 p.m. tomorrow, we're joined by John Carpe, president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, to speak about Bill C-9. We speak about the announcement that Mark Carney made on Friday last week, saying that he wants us to have a conversation about banning social media for kids under the age of 16. So we will be talking about that at 7 tomorrow. And at 7:30, we have two guests tomorrow, one at 7, one at 7:30. At 7:30, we're joined by Chris Joseph, the father of one of the young men that was killed in the Humboldt Broncos bus crash back in 2018. I know you guys remember that. Prairie recommended I reach out to him because there's an interview that just came out with him. And there's another interview that just came out from CBC talking about the guy, the Indian guy that ended up killing a bunch of teenagers back in 2018 because he drove a bus through their bus because he's facing deportation. So that's why CBC had him on and was talking about him last week. So I reached out to Chris Joseph. He's going to join us tomorrow, 7:30, to speak about what happened, to speak about his views, to speak about what he wants to put out there, because unfortunately the media have not done him justice. I don't think it's going to be surprising for you guys to hear that they do not cover those types of events properly, and they will not publish everything a father that lost his son has to say on the matter. But if you really want to know what he has to say about this, join us tomorrow, 7:30. It's going to be a hard conversation. It's going to be an emotional conversation, but that's the type of conversation we have here. Only the conversation that matters. So 7:30 tomorrow. I'm done. I'm going to stop talking right now, but I need to tell you, thank you for joining us. Thank you for always being here. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't do what we do every day. So thank you for being who you are, for spending the time with us, and we will see you tomorrow, 7 Eastern time on Tuesday, right here on YouTube. On that note, peace.